Hello, I'm Andrew Gentile, and I need to address an elephant in the room. Back in the beginning of 2021, Ariana co-created and began hosting this podcast with me. Scheduling and recording a podcast, as well as taking the time to watch the movies that we cover, is a big commitment of time and energy. And since the show does not bring in any money, neither Ariana nor I can make the show our main focus. Again, it's an absolute joy to make this show, but it's also lost us a lot of time and a lot of money. And since both of us have bills to pay, Ariana has made the smart decision and is taking a break from the podcast so she can actually have a healthy work-life balance. The current plan is that she'll come back on the show from time to time, but again, as of right now, she's taking a well-deserved break. Ariana, thank you for being my partner in this venture, for encouraging me to go after my filmmaking dreams, and for being a great friend. But that leaves us with one problem. Who's going to host the show with me? I'm not interesting enough or engaging enough to host a show on my own. I need someone I have good rapport with. I need someone who's passionate about movies. I need someone who's sharp, smart, sophisticated, sexy. Oh, hi, Max. You want to host a podcast with me?
I don't know who you are. You just pulled me off the street. I don't know. You said you'd give me a free drink. But I guess. I don't know. I don't have anything else better to do, you know?
That's the spirit.
But you want to talk about sexy? I mean, look in the mirror.
He's a horrible liar. So, Max, speaking of drinking,
Yeah, we've already
cheers.
made a lot of progress, but
Exactly.
hey.
No, Max is having, what are you having, Max?
I'm having a gin and ginger.
And I'm having a cherry Coke and whiskey. And speaking of drinking, Ireland is where our movie takes place.
Largely, yes, it does.
Largely, yeah.
Largely, not entirely, not exclusively, but so yeah, in honor of Ireland.
We're drinking.
Shout out to the Irish. I'm Irish.
Hurley?
Partially Hurley.
Max Hurley.
Don't dox me. Don't dox me. all of our millions of listeners are gonna come, scrambling from
too bad. We're doxing you in that sense.
Okay.
Your name's Max Hurley.
Yeah. Well, allegedly. All right. I'm gonna have a drink.
And Max, the movie we're covering in this episode is Barry Lyndon.
Yes.
This is your favorite movie.
Well, so for the longest time, it was my favorite film, and it still is one of my favorites, without question. It's an amazing film. And full disclosure, I've been on the podcast before.
Yes.
This is not my first rodeo by any stretch of the imagination. But Barry Lyndon, I remember Andrew asked me to compile a list long ago for when I would appear on the podcast the first time.
Very true.
And I believe the very first entry on that list was Barry Lyndon, because it really is a film that means a lot to me, and that has very much propelled me in terms of my own career, and my own sort of collaborations with Andrew, actually. It's so, I'm very excited. As you can see.
And what is it about Barry Lyndon that makes it one of your favorite films, Max Hurley?
I think, Kubrick is a director whom I admire very much so. But with Barry Lyndon, it's sort of the perfect storm in a way. Not in a bad, like a good storm, because you have all of these different elements sort of coalescing into this beautiful, stunning film. Without question, I feel one of the most beautiful films, but also in terms of just the acting and the directing, the writing. I mean, for me, it checks almost every box. It's, I think I've had a lot of friends who've been like, who I've recommended this to, and they're like, what, like a almost 3-hour long period piece? Like, you think I'm gonna like that? But the people that do watch it end up being shocked, because it's just, it flows. It has such a natural flow to it, I feel, and it's just such an amazing film. I mean, I we'll get more into it. I'm sorry, that's not a terribly good answer, but I just, when I think of this film, so many different things come to mind. It's hard to talk about them all.
Max, you just spun podcast gold. That was awesome.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you.
We're gonna talk about the initial reaction to the movie later. When it was released, it wasn't well received.
Right.
It was very mixed to negative reviews upon its initial release.
Yeah.
That seems to be the reaction of anybody I've seen watch the movie.
I've heard that reaction too.
And even me too initially.
Yeah.
When I initially watched the movie, it's like 99% of the world watches this movie for the first time and says, this is really slow.
This is some slow, boring,
looks beautiful.
trash. You know,
and then they watch it the second time and they're like, oh, this is hilarious.
It's not only hilarious, but it's also a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
It's fantastic.
Gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. Yeah, I remember like the opening, just starting from the opening scene.
Yeah.
Like it's this whole pomp and circumstance of the opening credits.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to a duel where they're talking about Barry Lyndon's father, or Redmond Barry's father.
Right. Redmond Barry.
He's later called Barry Lyndon.
Redmond Barry. Yeah.
Say that again?
Redmond Barry. Sorry, to the 3 people watching, you're probably not Irish, you know, so I didn't offend anybody. So
Sir, 5 people watch this podcast.
Okay, I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
Give us the extra 2, sir.
That's Andrew's mom and dad, you know, so hello. It's great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Please continue.
That's fair enough.
Please continue.
Starting from the opening scene, there's this whole pomp and circumstance of the opening credits, and then it immediately cuts to Redmond Barry's father in a duel. Yeah. And the narrator is talking about he was probably going to be a great lawyer.
Yeah.
Bang!
He's dead.
If he had not been killed in a duel.
Spoiler alert.
For the opening scene.
For the opening 2 minutes.
The opening 2 minutes of the film.
Spoiler alert, yeah.
But like starting right there, and then the most polite robbers ever.
Yes. I love the performances of those actors, particularly Captain Feeney.
Yes.
And
Seamus.
My son Seamus, you know, incredible performance. And I mean, but I think it's really fascinating too how, as you said, there's so much pomp and circumstance at the end, and then in typical Kubrickian fashion, it's promptly the rug is pulled right out from under you. Subverted, and reality sort of sets in. And like, it doesn't matter. You know, it just died. You know, that's what glory gets you in this day and age. You know,
right? And
so it's a very powerful opening. And again, the robbery scene is so good.
It's kind of that. I think that's at that point that people who watch it for the second time realize they're watching a comedy,
because that's
a comedy disguised as a drama.
People, I think, when they see this film, they think it's going to be a typical sort of, you know, melodramatic kind of period piece, whatever. But it's really funny. There are several moments throughout the film that are just hilarious, quite frankly, especially I'd say in the first half, you know, where Redmond Barry is still young and sort of experiencing life and gallivanting a little bit. And the robbery scene is one of them. I watched this recently with my uncle, actually, and you know, that's when he sort of it clicked for him. It's like, oh, this is funny. This is supposed to be funny, and he started laughing. It's very funny.
I was rewatching it, and what clicked for me, I think this is the 4th time.
You've seen it 4th time?
This is the 4th time I've seen it. A lot of Kubrick's films are about violence.
Yeah.
The first time you see Barry Lyndon, as I was saying earlier, it seems slow and boring.
Right.
But visually beautiful and lots of attention to detail. Second time you watch it, it's a comedy. Third time you watch it, there's more violence in it than I remember.
It's a tragedy, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, because you see, as you said, I think it's a good point bringing up how this film definitely shows a lot of violence, but it also shows how this violence can impact people, you know, throughout the years, and how this sort of initial violence that kind of consumes Barry sticks with him and eventually, spoiler alert, leads to his downfall. Yeah. So it's a very good point you brought up. Yeah.
You know, what's interesting about the movie too is that it's kind of, watching it this time, I'm like, oh, this guy's an asshole.
He is. Yeah,
Complete
yeah.
asshole.
He's a fucking dick, especially in the second half,
Yeah.
In the first half, you can sort of give him some credit. Like, he's just this young guy. He's in
Yeah.
love, he's trying to figure out his place in the world.
Yeah.
But once essentially, can we just talk about?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Once
spoiler.
spoilers.
Okay, here's the thing.
For Barry Lyndon.
Stop. The movie's A+ for me.
Just watch it. Just watch the film.
Just watch it. Pause the podcast.
It's
and
3
watch
hours
it.
long. So what? So fucking what? Just watch it, please. Do yourself a favor.
Okay, we're back.
All right, we're back.
And so you just watched the movie. Now, Max, continue, please.
But as his sort of illusions about love and about just the world kind of crumble, he does become much harder, and he becomes more of an asshole. I think probably the scene that really exemplifies this is when he immediately after the marriage, when he's in the stagecoach or in the the cart or whatever,
smoking.
He's basically achieved everything he's ever wanted. He's married this beautiful, very immensely wealthy woman,
Marissa Berenson,
Lady
Lady
Lyndon, and he is essentially he's got it all.
Yeah.
And so he's in the carriage. He's looking very smug out the window, and he's smoking a pipe.
Yeah.
And clearly Marissa Berenson, Lady Lyndon is,
great performance, by the way.
Great performance. She does an excellent performance. Yeah. And it's funny, as an aside, Kubrick was, I don't know if this is a spoiler alert for what you have, but Kubrick was allegedly very, very nervous around her. Extremely nervous. Like, he would pass her notes.
Really?
Yeah, because he was so scared of talking to her.
Why?
I think because she's a very beautiful woman.
I see.
And he was intimidated.
Is that true? Allegedly.
That's why allegedly it's true. Anyway, in this scene, he's smoking. She's clearly like, enough. And then finally she says to him, oh, Redmond, could you not smoke or whatever in the carriage? And, he just looks over with this devilish glare and just
all over
blows
her face.
all that
all
smoke in her face and continues smoking. And that's when it's like, damn. Like,
there was no need for
shit.
that.
There was no need for that.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that how disillusioned he's become with all of this. And especially, I feel that his disillusionment is only sort of reinforced to a certain degree once he's achieved it.
Yeah.
Once he's achieved everything. And in that moment in particular, you're just like, okay. The second half of this film is going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a peaceful, happy marriage, you know? But yeah, Marissa Berenson. Excellent performance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get to the facts.
Jack.
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels. New
Cheers.
Amsterdam. Cheers. Just the facts. Shout out to any LA Confidential fans out there. Just the facts, Jack.
I haven't seen that. By the way, you want to hear an Irish joke?
I love Irish jokes.
Because this movie takes place mostly in Ireland.
The first half, definitely,
a lot of it.
But even not, it's more like the first quarter.
First quarter,
because
but the guy's Irish.
He's Irish. Ryan O'Neal
in the movie, yeah.
Which for the listen, this is my main criticism with this film. I think overall Ryan O'Neal's performance is solid. He just doesn't seem European to me. I feel all of the other character actors, many of which appear in Kubrick's other films, do fantastic jobs. They're really just incredible. And I feel like these supporting characters who sometimes only are in the movie for a brief period of time, they give incredible performance, like the Chevalier du Baribari, in particular. I forget that actor's name. And for the, do you know the name of the, of Barry's sort of mentor early on in the military?
I know who you're talking about.
He was in the, I think he was in The Shining, or not The Shining, A Clockwork Orange. He gives I think Patrick McGee. I don't know. Either way, Ryan O'Neal. Another fact that I don't know if it'll be mentioned. Again, potential spoiler alert. Basically, the only way that because this was a Warner Brothers production, and essentially the only way that it would be produced is if Kubrick would essentially cast a very popular American leading man. And so he's kind of going back and forth between Robert Redford and Ryan O'Neal, and eventually I think Robert Redford had some commitments, and so Ryan O'Neal got it. And overall, I think he does a decent job, but to me, I don't know. I whenever I see Ryan O'Neal, I think of like Love Story. Have you seen that one?
I have not.
With what's her name?
Ally
Yeah.
McGraw.
Ally McGraw, and I don't know. It's a good performance overall. His Irish accent is pretty good. Pretty good.
I gotta say, I kind of like his performance.
Okay.
He's really good in Paper Moon.
Talented guy for sure.
Oh yeah,
extremely talented. I think he did very well overall. But again, for me, I feel like he was a little overshadowed by kind of the supporting cast and their performances.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I really feel like, again, with Kubrick's sort of retinue of actors that he sort of had at his disposal back in the 60s, 70s, early 80s, whatever. He was able to really work with them well, and they knew exactly what he was looking for a given performance, and they nailed it. And in particular, I mean, you have Leon Vitali as Lord Bullingdon. Fascinating performance, honestly, truly fascinating. But again, Ryan O'Neal, in case you're watching, you did a good job, buddy.
Isn't he dead?
No, he's alive.
Are you serious? No.
Wait, is he dead? I don't know, actually.
Can you Google it real quick?
Maybe he's watching from the... You want me to go?
Google real quick.
Ryan O'Neal, American actor. You're right, he is dead. Fuck.
It's in the podcast.
Damn. 82 years young.
Man,
he was a baby. Oh, man, I had no idea. I thought he still had a massive career ahead of him.
Right.
He's dead.
Right.
That's the look of the Irish for you.
We look at the Irish. Speaking of which, here's my joke.
Okay.
An Irishman walks out of a pub, right?
That's impossible. No.
Well, yeah, that's the joke.
Wouldn't happen. I mean, we basically live in pubs.
Belly aching from the potato famine to now,
Don't talk about that, okay? It's still a sore spot for us.
It's
still too fresh. Too soon. Too soon,
really?
We don't talk about the potato famine. I'm sorry.
Fact time. By the way, I stole all these facts from the Criterion Collection Blu-ray, so there's nothing...
That's okay. What are they going to do about it?
There's nothing new
here.
Care? So basically, if you want, just go buy the Criterion Collection Blu-ray.
You should. I mean,
it is.
It's the best way to see the film, I think, and you get so much added context, too.
And I just stole some bonus features, so just basically go watch the bonus features. We're just going to be talking
We're worthless, essentially. Just get the Criterion Collection. You don't need us.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to hang out with a couple of guys, this is
your
place to be. This is the place to be. Talking about facts about movies.
Yeah, just talking,
Yeah, but if you want the unfiltered facts, go buy the Criterion Collection.
Just the facts, Jack.
After 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick wanted to make a biopic on the life of Napoleon Bonaparte. Mm-hmm. Kubrick went so far in researching his subject that he actually, you know this already, yeah. Of course he does.
Well, please continue. Let me stop you.
No, I'm gonna keep. I'm just gonna power through. Kubrick went so far in researching his subject that he actually filled several filing cabinets with note cards, each note card presenting facts on one day in Napoleon's life. All of the note cards combined added up to every known fact about Napoleon. However, the financial failure of another film about Napoleon, Waterloo, led financiers backing out of Kubrick's project at the last minute. So instead, Kubrick would make A Clockwork Orange. What do you think of that film, by the way?
I actually just watched it for the first time. Well, I guess at this point it's been close to a year, but yeah. I think it's a fantastic
film.
Actually. I think it's a really great film.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he made it, but I'm also very I'm very sad that Kubrick never got to make his Napoleon film.
Yes.
Because that would have been so good, man.
Yeah.
It's so fucking good.
Jack Nicholson as Napoleon.
Oh!
No, he really was going to be Napoleon. And I'm like, we got deprived of that?
We did. I mean, we got Barry Lyndon instead. So
Which
like
is a fair trade.
It's a pretty fair trade overall. But again, just that factoid right there.
Yeah.
You know, every single day of Napoleon's life essentially being accounted for.
Yeah.
It just goes to show how much, you know,
cared.
how he gave a shit. He really did.
I think that's kind of the understatement of the century.
It's the understatement.
Kubrick giving a shit about his movies.
That's a bit of a...
And also we got later, Kubrick kept in mind for The Shining, so it's like,
True.
that's also a fair trade.
True.
And at the same time, I wish we lived in the universe where Napoleon got made.
Well, isn't there's some news that like Spielberg is trying to like revive.
He has so many projects. A silver lining of Kubrick's canceled Napoleon project is that he was able to use some of his research in his following film, 1975's Barry Lyndon. One of the reasons Kubrick was initially attracted to the 1844 novel The Luck of Barry Lyndon by William Makepeace Thackeray was because of its narration. According to Kubrick, the book warned its readers when a plot change was going to happen, a device Kubrick would carry over to his adaptation. So you know how like the narrator, like he always says like something along the lines of like Barry Lyndon was in a happy time right now, but he will later be poor, childless.
He was not destined for success. You know,
he's
going to be destitute or whatever. Yeah. I mean, typically, I feel I'm generally skeptical of narration in a film, but I think it works really well in this because, you know, the narrator adds a lot of irony to it, and I think it's great. And you can sort of the narration helps to sort of contextualize the whole thing and to sort of kind of get a little sneak peek as to the downfall of this character and puts his sort of actions into a larger context. It's great. I really do like the narration.
Yes.
I think it works very well.
He also kind of pokes fun at Barry Lyndon.
He does.
All the characters, yeah.
He does. He definitely he was like, Barry, you fucking asshole, you know.
It's almost like
you're gonna end up poor and broke and lonely, you know.
Well, it's also kind of yes, and what I meant kind of was like the narrative is almost like sarcastic, almost.
Yes.
He would have been a great lawyer. Had he not been killed in a duel.
He would have made for a great lawyer. Yeah, exactly.
He would have been very successful in his profession.
Prominent in his profession, you know, had he not been killed in a duel over the poor purchase of some horses.
It's almost like a Monty Python sketch in that sense.
It kind of is. And again, it highlights, I think the narration adds quite a lot to the overall comedy of the film because it can be very dry and very funny at times. You know?
Speaking of devices, let's talk about the camera and lenses Kubrick used on Barry Lyndon. So essentially, this is the most famous fact about the movie.
It's true.
It's kind of like at this point saying, "Oh, Viggo Mortensen's broke his toe as Aragorn when he was kicking the helmet."
That helmet, yeah.
But I'm gonna say it anyway.
It's gonna be new to one of our 5 listeners. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's gonna be new to my mom.
It's gonna be new to your mom.
No, actually, that's not even true. She went to the Kubrick exhibit.
Maybe it'll be new to your dad then.
He's been to the Kubrick exhibit. I know, right?
Well,
Kubrick felt that interior sets of period costume dramas felt false. The reason being that homes and interiors before electricity were lit by firelight, and the other films did not accurately represent this fact. Kubrick wanted to photograph Barry Lyndon's interiors primarily using candlelight, an impossible task in the days before digital filmmaking. That is, until Kubrick heard about specialized lenses that had been developed for NASA to take still photographs of the dark side of the moon, which he utilized when faking the moon landing. Wait, what?
What?
No, scratch. He didn't fake. The moon landing was real. Sorry, I love throwing.
We've never been to the moon before.
Right.
We've never. It's made of cheese.
Like Wallace and Gromit.
Exactly.
Well,
that Wallace and Gromit inspired Barry Lyndon, I feel. Yeah.
That came out in the 80s.
Well, retroactively, if you know what I mean.
Like time travel or travel scenario?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Okay.
There were 2 issues. Those lenses were designed for still photography, not motion picture photography, and they were big. To overcome those two hurdles, Kubrick bought a camera and had his technical crew take it apart with the intention of remaking the camera to fit the lenses on.
Mitchell BNC.
Yes. That was used for like was it rear projection photography?
I believe so. Yeah.
And I remember watching. Another source that I took was Stanley Kubrick: A Life in Pictures. Like that's where I took that fact from. Kubrick was like, I just really love to get those cameras.
Mm-hmm.
This guy. You've seen this documentary?
I think I have. Yes.
Yeah, and the guy who sold it to him got a call later on from his boss, and the boss was like, "Why did you sell those? You can't remake those cameras ever." And Kubrick just tore it apart.
He tore them apart
in order to fit the lenses on.
Yep.
So although they succeeded in fitting the lenses on, there were more issues that arose. One of those issues was that even with this newly invented and specialized equipment, there still wasn't enough light to produce an image on the negative. So Kubrick and company made all the candles with 2 wicks so that the candles would burn twice as bright.
Twice the wick.
Of course, twice John Wick Part 2. Of course, while filming in authentic, poorly ventilated homes from the period, the sets would quickly fill with smoke to the point where the crew would have to fight falling asleep.
Well, that's basically like getting a free fog machine at the end of the day.
Right. Free smoke machine.
Free smoke machine. Yeah. So I don't see what the issue is there.
Yeah. It's they were probably a little high from the
just open a window, let some of it out,
The final touch was to push the film negative stop. In filmmaking, a focus puller is someone whose job it is to make sure the scene or subject in front of the camera is in focus.
Yeah.
Very important job.
Very.
Low light scenes make the focus puller's job harder because you can't really see as well.
Can't really see, yeah.
So in order to make the focus puller's job easier, during the low light scenes of Barry Lyndon, a video camera hooked up to a monitor was set up next to the actors who were the subject of each particular shot. Barry Lyndon's focus puller, Douglas Milsom, would watch the actors on the monitor and adjust the shot's focus based on where the actors were within the view of the monitor. The focus had to be so precise that a series of lines were drawn on the monitor in order to indicate where the focus should be adjusted, depending on which line the actor was closest to within the monitor. And of course, Stanley Kubrick would not accept any mistakes.
No, of course he wouldn't. And I don't know if you're going to mention this at all, but the lenses in particular, for anybody who knows about photography, they had an f-stop essentially, which determines how much light can come in, of what is it, f0.7, which most lenses, like your everyday, like DSLR, will have an f-stop of maybe 4, or if you're using a prime lens of like maybe f1.8, which lets in a good amount of light. But f0.7, it lets in a ton of light, but as a result, it makes it extremely difficult to pull focus. Just because there's a tiny little sliver of the image that is in focus at a given time.
Yeah.
So not only was it's difficult today, to shoot with an f0.7, 0.9 lens, but in 1973 or 74 when they shot this thing, it's even more difficult.
Yeah.
And so it's really nothing short of a miracle that they're even able to pull it off,
Genuine question. If you can't answer it, I can cut it out. But can you explain to the folks at home, since you're a cinematographer?
No.
No, he really is. If you're able to, can you explain to the folks at home why more light makes the depth of field shallower? If you're not able to, that's fine.
I'll do my best. I'm far from being an expert, so
he's lying.
I'm not lying. But essentially, the wider your image circle is, the more light comes in, essentially. And so when you close that little circle, essentially lenses are designed after your own eye. So when you sort of close down that iris, naturally things gradually come into focus more. Everything is generally within focus. It's much sharper. But when you open it up, things can become more out of focus. There's shallower depth of field. And so with a lens like the one that was developed by NASA and Hasselblad or whatever,
I think it was Zeiss.
Was Zeiss? You're right. You're right. It's Zeiss. Thank you. See, that's why you're here. You're the expert. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. No clue. But the wider the aperture, the more light comes in. But if you keep it wide open, it essentially just makes it so that only a tiny little bit of the plane of focus is actually in focus.
Like nearsightedness.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Like nearsightedness. Yeah, it's a terrible explanation, but that's
no.
I'm a gin and ginger. Almost. I'm almost all the way through. So I apologize to our. Maybe we've got 6 viewers, 6 listeners at this point. You never know.
The sixth person is Kubrick's ghost, I believe, who's correct. Who's trying to correct us all.
He's rolling around in his grave right now.
Stanley Kubrick was unrelenting in his pursuit of getting every detail right. For example, in the scenes that take place inside of horse-drawn carriages, Kubrick did not want actual horses to draw the carriages, as the sounds of the horses would be too noisy on the soundtrack. So the crew attempted to use a car to drive the carriages. Kubrick was unsatisfied with the movement within the carriage when using a car because the car could not keep at a constant speed. The solution? Kubrick had the crew run and draw the carriages themselves while filming the interior of the carriages.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
That's so funny.
I got one.
That's so funny, dude.
Because Kubrick filmed dozens of takes, the crew would spend all day running and drawing the carriage.
Good workout.
Yeah, like apparently, like I want to say it was one of the crew members was talking about it in the Criterion Collection interview, and he was like, yeah, it was like 12 of us, and then they switch them out once we all got too tired. And then
how many would pull the carriage?
12 at a time.
12 at a time.
12 men.
I mean, they're heavy. Yeah, they're heavy carriages.
They're heavy carriages.
Yeah.
It took 6 horses or 4 horses.
I see.
To draw the carriage. So it was like 12 men. 12 strong, able-bodied men.
Muscly
armed men.
Yeah.
In the climactic scene in which Barry Lyndon duels with Lord Bullingdon, Kubrick wanted Bullingdon's actor, Leon Vitali?
I think Leon Vitali, yeah.
Leon Vitali to vomit.
Rest in peace.
Exactly.
I know he's dead. I know for a fact he's dead, which is tragic.
That is true. He did like a lot. He had done the main archival work.
That's right. Yeah.
And for Kubrick himself. So really, God bless
Leon James Vitali.
Is that really his middle name?
No.
Don't disparage the dead.
I'm not disparaging him.
Don't make fun
Respecting
of the dead.
him.
Respecting him by making fun of him.
I'm not making fun of him.
So Vitali was served, in order to get him to vomit, Vitali was served a smoothie-like lunch, and while the cameras rolled, swallowed a raw egg.
Oh.
As soon as Vitali swallowed the egg, he ran over to the wall where he was supposed to vomit and vomited.
Yeah.
Kubrick was given an enormous amount of power from his studio backers, Warner Brothers, who left him alone while making a film. Kubrick wanted to deserve this power, was very concerned with the presentation of the film, and upon Barry Lyndon's release, he sent instructions to many of the theater's projectionists on how to calibrate the projector's lights, and Kubrick went so far as to send associates to theaters to make sure the projectionists were presenting the film per his instructions. So like they had a light meter, and they were measuring the screen. Yeah, they were measured the screen's light, and then also measure like the sound to make sure it sounded okay.
Yeah.
Like the editor was talking about how he had to go and do that
at various theaters, essentially.
Yes.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me, knowing Stanley Kubrick, especially for a film
because you know Stanley Kubrick.
Right.
Knowing Stanley Kubrick.
Knowing Stanley Kubrick, I mean, I used to, Stan, as I like to call him.
Right.
We kind of go way back, and
Right.
I remember, just talking to him, and he was like, yeah, I had my boys go to theaters with, like, Regal Cinemas.
Boys?
And girls.
And girls.
Yeah, they, them, all of them,
Exactly.
the entire thing. Okay, we can move on.
Uh, no, no, I want to hear how much you bury yourself with this bit. No, I've dug,
Uh,
I dig holes all the time.
golly.
Despite the care Kubrick and company took in crafting the film, Barry Lyndon, as I mentioned earlier, was not a financial or critical success upon its initial release. The film and Kubrick were roundly criticized at the time for being more focused on the cinematography and the environment in which the film took place than its characters and story.
Mm.
However, as you and I talked about, Barry Lyndon is now considered a classic and is considered by many to be Kubrick's best film.
And I think it's worth noting that at the time when it was released, in America, the reception was obviously mixed. But in Europe, it was largely positively received.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, it's true. Because
Okay.
again, I mean, when you watch this film, it is a period piece technically,
Mhm.
but it it really does sort of, I guess, capture the entire life of this person. And in Europe, obviously, I mean, it's set in Europe, and it's set during like the 7 Years' War
Yeah.
and slightly before and after, and whatever. And so it definitely received a much warmer reception. Whereas here, I think people were just, as you said, they were like, well, the cinematography is great, which it won the Oscar for
Yes.
cinematography. Yes. John Alcott, great job.
Well deserved,
Shout out to
to say the
John.
least.
Great job. I mean, some of the best cinematography
Yes,
in history,
I agree with you.
without a doubt. I mean, some of these shots, for all the viewers who haven't seen the film, look like oil
Paintings.
paint. They literally look like paintings in terms of the framing, the color, the lighting.
They stole the compositions from the
They
paintings.
did. You're right.
Yeah.
They literally stole them.
Which makes sense.
Which, I mean, all the great artists of our times are thieves, essentially. So
Yeah.
I don't blame them for that. And it's an incredible film. And I'm very glad that it's had a critical reevaluation over the years, because it's really tragic that this film didn't really get the justice that it deserved upon its release, because it really is a remarkable film. I just think that maybe, I guess, American or North American audiences at the time were just a bit perplexed because this film certainly has a coolness to it, a coldness
Yeah.
to it. And I think it has to do with the themes of fatherhood and how Barry essentially is raised without a father. And he has had, and throughout the film, has several father figures who either die or are charlatans, essentially. And so he has his mother, but he basically leaves her early-ish on. And so I think audience were kind of confused a little bit at the time by the overall tone and messaging. But it really is a stunning film. When I rewatched it, my uncle, yeah, he got this, like, he rented this really shitty copy of
No.
it on like Comcast and on demand. But even still,
Right.
even though it kind of like, it was this terrible like 720p like rip or
God.
whatever, DVD rip or something, it's still not only a gorgeous film, but I think in that coldness you can sort of see Kubrick not necessarily poking fun, but sort of deconstructing the air of nobility and the air of trying to reach this higher class, which is, and deconstructing and just really illustrating how foolish it is and how silly it is and how it all doesn't matter. I think at the very end, at the last bit of text that we see at the end, I forget exactly what it says, but it's a very profound thing. It says it's like all of these characters existed in the time of King George or whatever, but they're all dead now, and they're all equal. And I think that's kind of the through line in a way of this film. It's like, no matter how hard you try to reach greatness and to achieve glory, at the end of the day, you're gonna die, and you're gonna be in the ground with everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real Kubrick sort of take on that. And I think it's very profound.
Yeah.
And so I can't recommend this film enough. It's truly a masterpiece. Not that my opinion matters, you don't even know who the fuck I am, but do yourself a favor.
Say that.
Do yourself a favor. Watch this film.
Right.
You agree?
I agree with you.
Okay.
Except I think Max is highly qualified to be making these opinions. I think Brian De Palma put it best in the documentary about him, De Palma, where in terms of the success, in terms of the lack of success in the film financially in America.
Yeah.
Like Brian De Palma said, when I saw Barry Lyndon, I initially hated it.
Yeah.
But then, like, I'm paraphrasing him, by the way. When I saw Barry Lyndon for the first time, I intensely disliked it. But what Kubrick is doing is getting you into the time sense. You have to slow things down. To him, it made perfect sense. To Kubrick, it made perfect sense. But to a guy coming off of, for example, San Francisco, the Mission District, he's like, oh wait, what is this? This is not movies. This is slow.
What the fuck is this shit? It's like,
Yeah.
I completely understand that because imagine you're, steel worker or whatever. Like, I want to go relax at the movies.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, Barry Lyndon, I like some of Kubrick's films, I'll just go.
Clockwork Orange was cool.
Clockwork Orange was great, I love the violence.
But, and this film's actually more violent than I remember.
It is. There are many moments of violence, but I mean, it is a completely different film, I feel, and definitely in terms of pacing and just how the story is portrayed and the journey that you go through, because you go through Redmond's life essentially. You see his struggles, his rises, because there are multiple rises and falls, which I think is really beautiful, because it's just you. Yeah, I mean, I especially compared to, I feel like, what was maybe coming out at the time in American cinema. Like, there was still a lot of great things coming out, but they're very different, generally speaking.
Right.
But please watch this film, please.
Yeah, it's an amazing piece of work.
Do it for Ireland.
Max.
Yes.
Max Hurley.
Yes.
Any more final thoughts on Barry Lyndon before we wrap up this episode?
Well,
speak now or forever hold your peace. On Barry Lyndon.
Of course. I should say that, I'm a little biased because I do typically like kind of longer historical sort of films.
Same.
But this really isn't like your average historical epic by any means. It is deeply funny, deeply ironic, but also deeply tragic, and I feel I don't know, it feels very realistic at times. It's very naturalistic as well. Which I really deeply appreciate, because so often these period pieces, with their music and their sets and their whatever, it's like, oh, we live in such an elegant, beautiful society. But no, but Barry Lyndon, it shows the rise to that, and it shows his entire journey, which is not a pleasant journey.
No.
Not at all. And that's one of the things that I sincerely appreciate about this film. It's long, but get over yourself. All right. So what? It's long. It's,
as Scorsese said, you binge watch entire seasons.
If you can't sit in a movie take a break at the intermission, watch the first half one night and then watch.
I say sit down, sit your butts down, go to the bathroom during the intermission, then come back.
Yeah, you could go to the bathroom just while sitting. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone to the bathroom several times during this recording. And you can't smell it yet.
You can't smell it. Oh, that's what I have. Do you have any final thoughts on Barry Lyndon?
Well, first I want to talk about what you just said.
Okay.
Which is, speaking of like long, boring historical epics, like unlike Barry Lyndon, like I remember I saw Ben-Hur in a movie theater.
Oh, yeah. God. Yeah. And
it's like, what is this shit?
How long is that? That's longer, right?
Well, it feels like it.
Yeah.
But I remember the chariot race, which people are always like, "Oh, the chariot race,
amazing."
So essentially, before the actual race itself in Ben-Hur, they actually walk the horses in the chariots around the arena as like a presentation, very slowly. This is before the actual violent race.
Yeah.
And then they start to almost go again. At that point in the movie theater, I was like, oh my God.
Building tension.
Shoot me in the goddamn face. But no. Um, but also Ten Commandments. Have you seen Ten Commandments?
No, I have not. I haven't seen either. You know,
Terrible movie. Ten Commandments is a terrible movie.
you heard it here first.
Because Cecil B. This is how pretentious it is.
Okay, let's hear
Cecil B. DeMille himself
it.
comes out at the beginning of the movie, says to the audience something along the lines of, "We have done extensive research into biblical times, and this is the most accurate set pieces you'll ever see." Like literally, that's the introduction of the movie.
Oh, that's funny.
And it looks like 1950s Disneyland, you know.
That's so funny, dude.
And it's like, anyway.
That's so funny.
And so Barry Lyndon is nothing like that.
It really isn't.
I mean, setting aside the fact that they're set thousands of years apart from each other.
Yeah.
But no, it's not like that at all. Barry Kubrick cared about the details.
Yep.
And that makes all the difference.
Well, and Kubrick also had, this sort of contemporary, at the time, vision for filmmaking. He had his own vision. He wasn't necessarily tethered by the forces that created Ben-Hur. He essentially had his own, he had free reign to make Barry Lyndon. And, I mean, time and time again, I mean, he's done historical epics, Spartacus or whatever.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't
House of Glory?
I guess I would consider it a historical. I don't know about an epic,
Yeah, okay.
It's but yeah, it's a historical film, and so he had that experience going in, because he was far from green by this point. Like he had started to enter, I feel maybe his quote unquote mature phase in terms of his filmmaking, and you can really tell, and you can really see that. So if I would highly encourage anybody who either appreciates like 2001 or any of his films, to give it a try, because it does seem scary from the outside. It's like, especially if you despise films like Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments, you're like, or like Pride and Prejudice and, that sort of stuff, which it's good, by the way. But it's really, honestly, a deeply funny, a deeply tragic, but just beautiful film in almost every respect. It really is. And I think, honestly, again, when I recommend it to my friends or to anybody, they'll at first be like, 3 hour long, 18th century, when they actually watch it, like, damn, that actually flowed extremely well, and it was great, so great film.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's great. Also, I have one more fact.
Okay, let's hear it.
I forgot this fact.
Let's hear this fact.
The scene where Barry Lyndon's son falls off the horse. That was a rehearsal take.
That was a rehearsal take.
Like Stanley Kubrick had second unit people. Because Stanley Kubrick was famously didn't want to fly, even though he had a pilot's license. Like it's almost like he got a license and I was like, this is way too dangerous. And so he had other people go to like parts of the world to get the exterior shots of like the city, the streets and the street scenes, and then he would film the interiors himself. But they had the kid on the horse, and then the horse flipped over, and the second unit was filming, and thankfully the kid wasn't hurt. But the guy who was filming it was like, we're not going to get better than this. And Kubrick said, don't be ridiculous. Let me see it. And then Kubrick said, according to the guy who was interviewed, the guy who got it, Kubrick said, well, you may have gotten something right for a change. And so they were like, yeah, we can't do anything better than
That's funny, dude. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yes.
Didn't know. I thought that was sort of, planned out, that him sort of falling off the horse in slow motion or whatever.
It's an incredible moment.
It is.
And terrifying.
It's a terrifying moment because, again, the narration preceding that moment essentially explicitly states that Brian would not live to see old age or
Yeah.
whatever, and that he'd die. So we know that it's coming.
Yeah.
We know we already have this, but even still, when it actually happens, it's just kind of this electrifying moment.
Yeah.
And obviously, when we see the aftermath, I mean, I think one of the scenes that really stood out to me in the second half was the moment when Ryan O'Neal and Marissa Berenson are by Brian's bedside. Ryan O'Neal actually gives a great performance when he's bawling essentially when Brian is like, oh, am I gonna die? Blah 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 blah. It's like it's such a tragic scene, and it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
So that's what I got in terms of facts.
Let me see. Are there any facts that you didn't mention that I know?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're the expert.
No.
You are behind the flicks.
And now you are become behind the flicks. Destroyer
I am
of
destroyer of flicks?
destroyer of ignorance about movies.
Oh gosh.
All right.
Light on our society.
On that Oppenheimer, random Oppenheimer reference. Listeners, if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to shoot us an email at independentcareerstudios@gmail.com. If you like this episode, please write a review and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, or YouTube. We'd love to hear your feedback. Behind the Flicks was created by myself and Ariana. The hosts were myself and Max Hurley.
It's true.
My name is Aaron Gentile. This has been an Independent Career Studios production.
Yep.